Today is November 25th. I'm going to call the meeting to order and ask our county administrator, Gary Schmidt, to please take the roll.
Thank you, Chair Bernard. I'll start with staff support. Christina Twilliger, clerk to the board, Nate Boderman, county counsel, and Garrett Teague, public and government affairs. Roll call. Chair Bernard.
Here.
Commissioner Humberston.
Here.
Commissioner Fisher.
Here.
There are currently only 3 commissioners present, although Commissioner Savas and Schrader should be joining momentarily.
All right, we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance, so please join me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, life, liberty, and justice for all. Thank you. We are holding this meeting virtually. If you've joined us on Zoom app for this meeting and you are interested in providing public comment, we'll prompt you regarding how to do that when the time is right. You will have the option of providing your comments to us live. Alternatively, anyone can send a comment to be read during the public communication portion of our meeting over email. Just send your email to bcc@clackamas.us. Be sure to include your name and the area from which you come. And what's up first, Gary?
First, Commissioner Savas has joined us now. We will start with a wildfire update. We have Nancy Bush, Director of Disaster Management and Incident Commander of the Emergency Operations Center, to present. Please go ahead, Nancy.
Thank you, and good morning, everyone. So I don't have a lot to add from yesterday, but I do want to just do a couple reminders. Want to make sure everyone knows that we do now have the end of the event date, which is November 3rd. That means the clock started ticking on November 3rd, especially for debris removal. And we now have 6 months to get that done. And we continue to work with the state of Oregon and ODOT to get that done. They are working on those contracts now. We did get a few answers yesterday about some of the contracts and what that will be. We were concerned about who the applicant was going to be and how that might impact some of our other reimbursement. And we've now been told that if ODOT does do all of our tree removal, which is what we are planning, that does not impact our application to get other funding. So that is really good to hear. Just a couple of other things. Just a reminder to all of our residents that might be impacted that you still have time to go and apply for individual assistance. And if you go to clackamas.us/wildfires, that is where you can find that application, but that does close on November 30th, which is Monday. And now that we know that the state of Oregon is going to be cleaning up personal property, if the homeowner decides to do so, you have to have a right of entry form that must be completed and sent in. And you can go to that same website again, which is clackamas.us/wildfires, to find our right of entry forms and get that in. That is free of charge for those that do decide to do that, but you do have to do the right of entry form in order for it to be complete and for you to be considered. And that is all I have for wildfire. I do have a couple things on COVID, but I'll pause there to see if there's any questions on wildfire.
I don't see any questions, Nancy. Thank you.
All right. So before it's turned over to Philip, there's a couple things I wanted to talk about with COVID. So I worked with Sarah Ekman, which is in BCS, and on some of the what we're trying to do for our businesses and doing some reach out there. So in the first round of dollars that went out to our businesses, there were some applicants that they didn't have enough money to cover, though they did qualify for grants. And so I would like permission from the board to add $150,000 from our CARES dollars, which we can't afford, and give it to BCS so they can make that complete for those applicants that we weren't able to fund. So
Nancy, do you need a motion for that?
Gary, I don't think I need a motion. I think they just need to agree. Is that correct?
Just a head nod or a thumbs up, please. Yes.
Any other thumbs?
Oh,
Okay.
okay.
Everyone's
Thank you very much, and I know our businesses appreciate that as well. Commissioner Fisher, I also found out the answer to your question that you had yesterday about the long-term care facilities, and the answer is yes. The testing has been done where they ramped up all the testing, and it does continue with our long-term care facilities. And just to remind everyone too that we do pay special attention to those long-term care facilities with the state. Which is also where we're seeing more outbreaks there, because those congregate shelterings are really high on our list because they're high risk, and the individuals, of course, there are also high risk. So that is all I have for my 2 COVID things before Philip brings up, I think yeah, there you are, Philip.
All right,
all right, thank you.
So on our news, Philip Mason Joyner is our Public Health Director and Co-Incident Commander of the Emergency Operations Center. He will now give the formal COVID-19 update.
Thank you, Gary and Commissioners. So Christina, as usual, if you can pull up the slides, I will share some of our current data and information on COVID-19 for this week. So if you go to the next slide, you'll see our weekly case count data, and disappointingly, we're still on the uptick. The trend is not flattening and it is not declining. So this is really disappointing. Not completely surprising, as folks have moved their gatherings indoors. We have seen at this point now the impacts of Halloween, following up on a whole lot of Halloween related gatherings and cases in those populations. And as Nancy discussed, I mean, we're seeing a lot of cases in the younger age groups, the 20 to 30 to 40-year-olds. And the concern about this is really a large community spread that is going to then impact our older adults and those who are at highest risk from severe illness, hospitalization, and death from COVID-19. Oregon did announce yesterday that we had our highest amount of deaths from COVID-19 yesterday. Next slide, please. This slide shows the frequencies within different settings for outbreaks. So yes, as Nancy mentioned, the long-term care facilities, we're really working closely with those facilities. We have over 70 in Clackamas County. Because of our case rate right now, these facilities are required to do twice a week testing of all staff and all residents. So yes, we are seeing outbreaks in cases within these facilities. Also workplaces, that continues to be a source of spread when folks need to come together and they can't do work remotely. We see situations where workplaces really of all type are having outbreaks. Food distribution, food processing, and within the farming communities. We still have some school outbreaks that we are working on from the short amount of period of time where they were open, and a handful of others that are reflected here. Next slide, please, Christina. Yesterday, on Tuesday, Nancy shared a graphic around looking at COVID patients that are hospitalized, how many have been admitted, if they're on ventilators or not. And this is another visual that we receive on a regular basis from the hospital systems that we look at really closely. It's around our bed capacity and a really important metric around our response to COVID-19. Right now, myself and Dr. President, we're meeting really frequently with our hospital partners to monitor the impacts of those who do have severe illness and need to be hospitalized, and how much bed capacity we have with access for folks with potentially with flu, with other needs to access our hospitals and need services and supports. So it's pretty tight right now. Oregon, we don't have as much capacity as something like a global pandemic we would need. So that's why, when the state puts out additional restrictions and is concerned about the spread and the rise in cases, this is ultimately one of the primary things that we're concerned about, is not having our hospitals become overwhelmed. So you can see in yellow shows you the available beds right now in the system. In gray are occupied. The blue just shows you the total amount of beds available each day, and it fluctuates based on staffing. Certainly our healthcare workers that are working and also impacted by COVID-19, all of the hospitals are stretched in terms of keeping up with the demand and having beds available to provide care. Next slide, please, Christina. Projections. So in the past, we've shown modeling that the state of Oregon has provided a lot of that at the state level. They have started to give us now county-specific projections, which we really appreciate. Right now, we are hovering in between the yellow and the orange graphic here. But what this shows you is our current case count and where we're projected to go. And this is based on community spread and based on the level of things that are open, and as the requirements, restrictions around social gatherings relax, if we were, to move to much more broad, larger gatherings, businesses being able to fully reopen, you'd be looking at things up in the red. Right now, we're in the yellow phase with the governor's freeze. And so we're actually a little bit above what the projection says right now in Clackamas County. We don't know yet what the impact of the current freeze is in effect until next Wednesday will look like. And then the last slide I have today is just reminders around holiday guidance and safety. So our public and government affairs staff and partners have been working really hard to make sure that we're providing guidance to the public on how they can celebrate Thanksgiving, which is tomorrow, and all the holidays coming up and celebrations. With the freeze in place, our public health guidance is really focused on gatherings of 6 people or less within your social circle, and no more than 2 households coming together. This will be a big help in reducing people's exposure and potential risk from the virus. I also want to encourage everybody, if you have not gotten your flu shot, please, please, please do so. This year is more important now than ever. And finally, we've been saying it for months and months and months, but please wear a mask whenever you're interacting with anyone outside of your household. It is a really effective tool in helping us to reduce the spread. With that, I am happy to answer any questions that any board members may have.
Philip, I want to make a comment, and let me see, what was the other thing? I want to make a comment, and there's something else. Now I got to remember. So let's go to Sonia, and then I'll get back to me.
Hey, Philip, I was really impressed with the chart that had the forecast. Could we go back there? Because I just want to make sure I understand it. And I know you did a great job explaining it. I just think it's really important, and I'm not sure I got it all when you explained it. So let me just make sure this is correct. The red chart, the red line, is if we do nothing and community spread just happens if we don't have the guidance that's in place. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's how we interpret it. These are based on modeling scientists, and it has if you see the REFF, that is the reproductive value. So essentially, how easily the virus can spread based on the interactions that are occurring amongst people. So the more restrictive we are with our own behaviors and as a community, trying to have less interactions, less opportunity for the virus to take advantage of and to spread, the more impact we can have to help reduce the community spread. The more you open things up, the higher it is. And so when you move from 1.1 to 1.4, that doesn't seem like a whole big jump of a number, but certainly it has a very significant impact on how the virus can spread more quickly.
Okay, and then the modeling that's orange, is that with what restrictions? I'm not sure what the difference is between the yellow and the orange.
Well, if we go back to the summer and spring, I would think about yellow being more like the phase 1 state that we've been in, orange being more phase 2, and then red being more community fully open. If that's
okay. So wait, so the orange would be more like the freeze that we're in now.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's not
exact. You know, these are national models and they don't exactly match Oregon's approaches, or it's all been a little bit confusing. I think we all recognize that.
Right, I just want to make
give you a little bit more of a sense
that my assumption is correct, that like right now we're at what, according to this, we're at about between 592 and it doesn't say exactly where we are, but it's above there, and we can expect that if we keep with the current restrictions that we have right now, we will really basically double our cases by December 20th.
That's right, because right now, the week of the 20th, we're at 811 cases this week. So we're a little bit above what this is projecting, actually, is what we're seeing. We've gone above the projections just a little bit.
Okay, so regardless, even if we stay where we are, we're going to double our cases with the current restrictions, at least.
That's what this model is showing us.
Wow, okay. But we don't know if this is really true. We can look back on December 20th and see how accurate it was, right?
Yes, we are continuing to go up, so we've got to slow down and start seeing a decrease in cases, and right now we're not seeing that.
So this is really a call to action.
Yes.
Yes, thank you.
All right, so I remembered what I was going to say. When you say community spread, you mean you can't identify specifically where it's coming from, correct?
Exactly. So the table I showed with the workplaces, you know, there are cases in the workplace, but as we do the interviews with the employees and the employers, we find that the source of that outbreak was not actually the workplace itself. It was folks, social gatherings, other activities that they're doing in their lives, and then coming to work and exposing other people.
All right, thank you. So last night I was on the phone with the chairs of the other 2 counties, Multnomah and Washington County, Catherine Harrington and Deborah Kafori. Philip was on. We had asked the governor to delay her announcement, which will happen at 1:30 today. The reason is that it'll be very difficult for our folks to analyze, communicate to the community the importance of following these directions that she's coming out with. Some changes, some new metrics, some other things, which so my recommendation is at 1:30 you watch the governor's presentation. The importance here is really that, you know, we really need to protect the business community, but businesses can rebuild. People die, they can't be brought back to life. So it's really important. Some communication about masks, you know, there's a fashion statement. You can put something on it like, I got rid of Commissioner Jim Bernard in the election, something that makes a statement, but wear them. I don't care what's on them, wear them to protect not only you, your friends and family. It's so important. Thanksgiving won't be a thankful day if next week you have to plan funerals. And if we do not follow the governor's regulations, we ain't gonna have Christmas. I mean, some of you will have it anyway, but we won't have Christmas. And it's up to you now. It's up to all of you to take this message to your families and protect everyone else. Please do it for yourself. Do it for your friends and family, because lives matter. Well, it's so important. So please, Paul. Mute, Mike.
Thank you. Philip, I mentioned this to Nancy on Tuesday. I appreciate the charts and the data. For me, more the merrier. For some, not so much. But that one chart the media is using, I think, is a great one, and it's showing the hospitalization chart starting from the beginning of the COVID crisis to current, and it seems to be the one that the media is using quite a bit. And I think it would be just for a sake of consistency to let people know that we're all on the same page, with similar messaging. I mean, having the material you present is great. I mean, I would say, in addition to that, having maybe that one graph that's being used a lot. And it's the same one I'm seeing on the OHA website, which is where they're getting it from, obviously. But that would be great. It really will show the spike in the hospitalizations, which is literally upwards, right? And obviously it looks similar to the case counts as well. I think a number of people predicted, knowing this is an airborne disease, that when the weather got colder, and in the states where the weather got colder is where we saw the spikes. And the southern states were the latter ones to see the spikes because the weather's still warm in parts of the country and people are still outdoors. And the more people are indoors and not so good ventilation environments, the greater the risk of the spread. So we're seeing that. The other thing that is, and I'm not here to be over dramatic, but I just want to share an experience. And that people, when they look at these charts, they look at the beds, and you talk about the fluctuations. As a kid who, from the ages of 9 through 13, worked in a hospital, naval hospital during the Vietnam War, and went door to door, by the way, during that time. When someone was in there the day before and you knew that they were having a very difficult time and maybe they were on the edge of their life, perhaps, and you walk in the room the next day, the room's empty, and the room is clean, waiting for the next person to come in. And we, sometimes we knew that person passed, and sometimes we knew that maybe that person, got better and was moved on or moved to a different department. But I'll just tell you the impact it left on me growing up when someone passes in a hospital and people are caring for those people. And I wasn't one of those. I wasn't a caretaker. But the point is that when we see these fluctuations, people are surviving with COVID, and they don't have to be in an ICU bed, and maybe they get to go home, and then some people don't go home. But I do want to say that in experience, we all have to realize not only is the death rate or the hospitalization rate important, something we factor in mind, but a friend of mine got COVID several weeks ago, and we thought that she would be doing a lot better and she would recover, and she was making great progress. Well, she's struggling. She's probably going to be okay, but she may be impacted for the rest of her life, perhaps. So she got some serious issues. So she might have permanent impacts. And for anyone who watched 60 Minutes on Sunday night, I know you can play those tapes back, but they did a piece on that. And they're discovering that while some people indeed survive and maybe come back and they're 100%, there's some people that may be permanently impacted, whether they have lung damage or they have damage due to blood clots in the brain and so forth, that this disease tends to do. But I think we need to realize that it's not just the mortality rate associated with this. Not is it just the hospital bed capacity issue. There's a lot of factors in that impact all of us. So I definitely want to encourage people to take every precaution they can during the holidays, and just bear in mind that we got to take this seriously, and it affects all of us, whether we realize it now or not. Thank you.
All right, thank you. I know today we're trying to move on so some of you guys can go to a luncheon, and this is a busy day. So let's get going, and thank you. Wait, Gary, are Nancy and Philip free to leave?
Do you have any more updates, Nancy or Philip? Are you good? All right, yes, you may go. Thank you very much.
Thank you, thank you. So the next we want to bring Ann in because we have a hearing. Gary, what is that?
First, if you could announce the recess, please, Chair.
Okay. The board will now recess as the Board of County Commissioners and convene as a housing board for the next item. With that, I'd like to introduce Housing Authority Commissioner Ann Linstra. Ann?
Thank you.
Is that, what falls are those?
That's Niagara on the Canada side, but I'm not there.
I know. Thank you, Ann, for joining us. And with that, I'll ask the clerk to read the Housing Authority consent agenda by title.
The Housing Authority consent agenda has one item in the matter of approval to execute the General Depository Agreement, HUD Form 5199, and that's it.
Do any commissioners wish to remove this item from the consent agenda? Seeing none, I'm going to you, Ann. What would you like to do about this?
Well, I move we approve the Housing Authority consent agenda.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve the Housing Authority consent agenda. Any further discussion? Please, Christina, would you please poll us?
Well, Commissioner Leenstra,
Aye.
Commissioner Fisher,
Aye.
Commissioner Humbertston,
Aye.
Commissioner Savas,
Aye.
Commissioner Schrader. I saw you voice the aye. Your mute or your mic was off.
Aye.
There you go.
Thumbs up.
Chair Bernard.
Aye, motion carries unanimously. And Ann, have a safe Thanksgiving, and I appreciate you taking your time today.
Same to you. We'll see you a couple weeks from now. Thank you.
Thank you, Ann. With that, the board will now adjourn as a Housing Authority board and reconvene as a Board of County Commissioners for the remainder of the meeting. And I'm turning it over to Gary.
Yes, and for the record, Commissioner Schrader has joined us, so all 5 commissioners are present. Next is a presentation, recognition of County Surveyor Ray Griffin as 2020 Surveyor of the Year. We have Cheryl Bell from Transportation and Development to present. Go ahead, please, Cheryl.
Great. Good morning, Chair Bernard and Commissioners. I am so happy to be here to share a recent accomplishment of note by one of the Department of Transportation and Development staff. We are very proud to announce that Ray Griffin, our county surveyor, has been recognized by his colleagues throughout Oregon as a 2020 Surveyor of the Year. Ray joined Clackamas County in the Surveyor's Office in 2015 and moved up to the position of County Surveyor in 2016. In this role, he supervises a team of 8, including both surveying and public land corner staff. His office oversees the 6,400 land corners in the county and provides surveying resources within incorporated cities and for the unincorporated areas of the county. In this work, the office annually restores 60 land corners and facilitates the creation of 1,300 to 1,500 new lots or parcels each year. This work is the foundation of development and a vital resource for all construction within incorporated and unincorporated Clackamas County, and really is the key to creating our vibrant community and built infrastructure. In giving Ray this significant recognition, the Oregon Association of County Engineers and Surveyors noted 3 key components: Ray's knowledge, dedication, and collaboration. Their statement went on to say that Ray's been very active in the organization, often bringing complex and well thought out questions to the group, as well as always having a solution for other members' questions. They noted Ray's diligent work in finding ways to improve processes within his office and the impact this has made in the industry as he shares his successes with others. In particular, he has been spearheading adoption of new plotter technology and acceptance of new drafting media. I know this sounds small, but this has been a big deal, especially in addressing going to digital services with COVID. They closed by acknowledging Ray as a respected mentor in the profession and for fostering new surveyors through his office's internship program, which is something we're very proud of. Ray is also a kind, funny, and all-around excellent leader and team member. He is a very valued part of the DTD leadership team. So I'm pleased to provide you with the funnest recommendation of your meeting today. Staff respectfully recommends the Board of Commissioners join the Department of Transportation and Development and his colleagues in recognizing County Surveyor Ray Griffin for his professional expertise and achievements as the 2020 Oregon Surveyor of the Year. I think Ray may be in the audience too. So.
Well, it would have been nice to see who he is and see if he'd like to say.
I think Christina, is he in the audience today?
No.
I don't see him.
Well, thank him for us for representing the county so well, and we appreciate the hard work he's done. I know it's not an easy job sometimes finding those markers. I tried to do that on my property, and it was very difficult. Anyway, thank him, and again, we appreciate the service to the county and to the residents of Clackamas County.
Great. Thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you. And thank you. And Gary, what's up next?
Next, commissioners, you have 5 public hearings, the first of which is second reading of ordinance number 09-2020, adding Clackamas County Code Chapter 8.10, short-term rentals to the Clackamas County Code, and amending Clackamas County Code Chapter 2.07, compliance hearings officer. Nate Boderman from County Council will present. Go ahead, please.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. Christina, could we bring Martha Fritzy on here? And while Martha's coming in, I'll mention, obviously this morning we do have the second reading of an ordinance that would establish rules and regulations related to the operation of short-term rentals in the unincorporated portions of the county. So this is the second reading, so the provisions in the proposed ordinance have not changed from the last version you saw a couple weeks back during the first reading of this ordinance. Now, I know there's been a couple discussions since that time, but the direction that staff was given was to proceed with the second reading today and present the ordinance as drafted. So that's why we're here and the purpose of the second reading here today. So procedurally speaking, approval today would finalize your decision and the regulations would go into effect on July 1st, 2021. And that's according to the terms of the ordinance that's presented. If the board would like to make any changes to the ordinance, that's certainly your prerogative to do so, but I'll note that we would need to note those changes for the record and schedule another public hearing to hold a subsequent reading, which includes those changes in order to finalize the ordinance. So just keep that in mind, setting just some procedural background for you. So with that, I'll turn it over to Martha so she can just briefly review with you the proposal in front of you today.
Hi, good morning. Christina, I think Dan Johnson wanted to be in the room as well this morning. So, well, if I could share my screen, I do have a very short presentation for you. Looks like I can share my screen. And I have to admit that Nate covered half of it. So it will be short, I promise. Today, as Nate mentioned, is the second reading of the proposed county code amendments related to short-term rentals, specifically the addition of chapter 8.10 to the county code. That chapter would create a registration and, regulation program for the operation of short-term rentals in unincorporated Clackamas County. And recall, when we are talking about short-term rentals, it really is just the rental of a dwelling unit or a portion of a dwelling unit on a short-term basis for less than 30 consecutive nights. There have been no changes to the draft presented at the first reading, as Nate mentioned, and if this is adopted, the effective date proposed for the short-term rental program would be July 1st, 2021. And I am not going to spend a lot of time going through the background of this project. It's been almost 2 years now. We have had a lot of conversations about this. There has been a lot of public outreach, a lot of public participation, and we have spent a lot of time talking about the specific regulations that are proposed for the county code. And so I'm not going to spend any time today going over those, and Nate and I are both happy to answer questions about those specifics if you have them. What I did want to bring to your attention or remind everybody is that this is a large project to fully implement the short-term rental program. There's really 3 prongs to the amendments, and each of these needs to be adopted separately. The first one being the county code amendments for section 8.10, which we are here to discuss today, which really is the bulk of the short-term rental registration program. That section would contain all the rules and regulations specific to short-term rentals, the application and enforcement processes and requirements. Tied directly to that would be additional county code amendments that would be needed if you adopt section 8.10, and those would be specifically to 2 appendices, Appendix A and Appendix B, which are the fines and fees. Excuse me, it's the other way around, fees and fines. That would occur under a separate adoption. And then the second item on here is actually running concurrent with our process for today. And it is changes that need to be made to the zoning code, to our zoning and development ordinance. And if you recall from all of our previous conversations, one of the main reasons that we started this project a couple of years ago is that our zoning code is silent about short-term rentals, and some amendments need to be made specifically to 2 sections to our zoning code to make it clear that short-term rentals are specifically allowed and where they are allowed. So we are well into the adoption process. This is the second reading of the county code amendments for section 8.10. We had the first reading on November 5th, and you all voted to proceed to this second reading. On this past Monday evening, we had the first public hearing for the zoning code amendments, public hearing with the Planning Commission. Those code amendments will be coming to you, to the board, for a public hearing on December 9th. And if those are adopted, the official ordinance adoption is scheduled for December 17th. And then the additional county code amendments to adopt the fees and fines is not expected to occur until about the spring of 2021, when you have your conversations about fees and fines as part of the regular budgetary adoption process. So I should note that the Planning Commission hearing on Monday was a very, very long hearing. The Planning Commission spent a lot of time talking about the zoning code amendments, and actually probably more time talking about regulations that they know weren't part of the zoning code amendments that were actually part of the county code amendments, and wanted to be sure that I articulated to you, to the board, some of the big issues that came up during that hearing. Generally the biggest issues that the Planning Commission discussed were the total number of people on the property. There's concerns and certainly a desire to make sure that there was a cap on the number of people on the property. It ties directly to another one of the main issues that came up, which are infrastructure impacts. They talked specifically about septic and well. And then of course the subject of fees came up, not any specific numbers. There was an interest perhaps in our questions about whether or not it could be built on a sliding scale, and also to be sure that there's some sort of review built in after a couple of years to understand really what the costs of the program are. The Planning Commission did understand that that really wasn't part of what they were voting on Monday, and ultimately they did vote 7-1 to recommend approval of specifically of the zoning code amendments. That was the subject of their hearing. And we can talk and will talk a lot more about those specific code amendments and their recommendations at your December 9th hearing. I just wanted to be sure to relay the message from the Planning Commission that those were really the main issues that they had in their hearing. So getting back to today, we are talking specifically about the proposed section 8.10 amendments into the county code. And I don't really have anything else to present about it. I am happy to answer questions if anyone has any. And that's really the end of my presentation today.
Well, I don't know how much interest there is in, Paul has his hand up, but I have something I'd like to present too, but I think I will first go to Paul, and then depending upon what he says, I may give my presentation, which I may share a screen on. So Paul.
I don't have a presentation per se, Jim. So why don't you go ahead and make yours?
Okay.
Mine's more of a comment, but my comments are probably going to change after I see your presentation, probably. So go ahead.
I don't know. Well, so Christina, please bring up my screen. Can you make that a little bigger? This is actually in the packet today. I just copied to put it up on the screen. And I think what's important here is that when we started this conversation, we suggested, or we said to the community, that if we're going to allow this to happen, we need to enforce. Now, that enforcement is in this code. It's really more about the regulations. And I think specifically, if you read the regulations, and of course, the county can only limit unincorporated Clackamas County areas. And the regulations that apply really protect those people who live around those communities or where this short-term rental would be. And so when we look at short-term rentals, we're asking people to register so that we know where they are, provide contact information to help respond to complaints, an affidavit about safety. I think that's really important, and evidence that you've paid all the fees and taxes and you have signed up for transient lodge tax programs, proof of liability insurance, and a plan and dwelling site. And then the next item, which was mentioned last night about the maximum overnight occupancy, that's an area that I am more than interested in looking at reducing those numbers. I think 10 people in a house would be sufficient. If we wanted to make that change, that's fine with me. Off-road parking, if you reduced it, I think the plan here is one per sleeping unit for each 2 sleeping areas. Garbage pickup, which makes perfect sense. We don't want people burying their garbage out in the yard. We also have quiet hours. We have building and safety codes for fire. That means if it's in the basement or something, they need a way to get out should a fire start. Then short-term rentals about either being in the owner's home or adjacent lots, and allow guest houses to be used as short-term rentals. And then we have some fines that should people fail to adhere to that. Now, obviously, if we're not going to enforce, those fines don't mean anything, but I think we need to enforce because that's what we said. You guys are going to have the ability in the future, you can go ahead and drop that screen. You guys are going to have the ability in the future to set the fees. I think they're high. I think reviewing those fees after the first year would be a good idea. So you guys are going to make that decision in the future in July, I believe, and can make that determination. But I think if we're going to allow them, we need to follow the promises which we made, and that is at least have a contact person and limit the number of people, give hours of operation, and protect the communities that surround these. But another reason is that if I drive up my street, New Era, I can see a lot of empty homes because somebody built another one behind. And a lot of people are struggling out there. And farm workers and things like that may be living in below standard housing. There's an opportunity here to provide revenue, housing for folks out in the rural communities. And I think that's really important. And really, I'm open now. Paul, would you like to start?
Yeah, well, I appreciate you mentioned all that, Jim, and I am trying to test in my head how these things would play out, and we have discussed this, and staff's done a great job and been very patient with us, And this is complex, and I have stated I am committed to making short-term rentals legal. And I'm also committed to making sure that what I heard, our staff heard from the public, overwhelmingly was the impacts to their neighborhoods and communities. And so while that one sentence in the page you just displayed said it'll be enforced either by the sheriff's office or it'll be enforced by code enforcement, most of the complaints that have been along the lines that we have heard from the community seem to fall into the sheriff's office realm of enforcement. And so if we're going to implement, for example, fines, and let's say the first offense or the second offense and the fines go up, I think that's great to have a progressive schedule. But let's just say that someone up at Rhododendron has a short-term rental, there's ruckus, everything, the sheriff doesn't respond, it's on a Saturday night, there's no code enforcement that night, and then Monday morning, all's quiet, all's gone. But the sheriff was unable to respond because they didn't have enough officers out there to get up to the mountain. So does that actually register as a complaint?
Well, if somebody files somebody complains.
But if you're going to fine someone, and this is more of a question for legal, I think, if you're going to fine someone for a phone call about a noise complaint, does that phone call, the fact that whether they called the sheriff's office, they didn't respond, does that actually register is that valid to actually fine someone? I mean, it's like saying someone's speeding down in front of my house and write them a ticket, but the officer's going to say, "Oh, I didn't see it, so I can't write a ticket." So that's a question for Nate. So if I could get at least that one, and I'll continue on.
Sure. Well, I'll start by saying that there's no difference between a noise violation associated with a short-term rental as opposed to a noise violation associated with another activity, right? And so this ordinance is not empowering the sheriff's office to do anything that they currently don't already have authority to enforce. And you'll recall we just went through updates to our noise ordinance. And so it becomes an issue at this point of how they substantiate that violation. We've taken efforts to make it easier to substantiate that violation. We've put in place new fines associated with those noise ordinances, or noise violations, I should say. And so it goes through a hearings officer's process and a similar type process that other violations would. And so I can't tell you the level of proof that an officer would need to feel comfortable citing based on certain facts and circumstances. But what I can say is my belief is that it's easier to do so now after the noise violation. And again, that has nothing to do with the short-term rentals. I mean, that's something that the sheriff's office can enforce today, and they will continue to be able to enforce.
Right. And so, I think I'm following this pretty good. We went away from objective standards like decibel readings to something subjective. But if the officer is not there and is unable to show up at the rhododendron because they have something going on somewhere else in the county, that situation passes. That complaint doesn't really qualify. It's a phone complaint into the sheriff's office. It may be registered or recorded, but that doesn't qualify. That doesn't sound like solid enough evidence or whatnot to say, you know what, the owner of this short-term rental, you now owe us $250. We can't just send him a bill for $250 based on that, can we?
Not necessarily. Again, it'll have to go through a hearings officer process. But what I will say is that currently, because the new noise ordinance isn't in effect, currently you have to have a sheriff's deputy on site with a noise meter registering that complaint.
That's my point.
After January 4th or whenever the new noise ordinance goes into effect, in theory, you could have recordings submitted into evidence. You could have somebody with an iPhone noise meter or something registering that to substantiate a noise violation. That can be the type of evidence that could be submitted to contribute to a finding that the noise ordinance has been violated. So this is different types of evidence.
Okay, so that activity, is a complaint. Staff reacts. It goes before a hearings officer. That's a process. What's the cost of that one action? I mean, what would be is that factored in to the fee?
Well, that's all based on sheriff's activity, right? And so what the fee is contributing for, and my colleagues can correct me if I misspeak here, but the fee is directed to administration, by finance of the program and additional code enforcement. Now, noise complaints aren't enforced by code enforcement. They will enforce things, specific to the short-term rental program, like non-registration, like failure to, abide by occupancy limits, whatever you see in the ordinance in front of you that's specific to code enforcement, those are, but again, the fee will not go towards increasing sheriff's patrols, will not go to enhancing any enforcement of noise violations, if that answers your question more specifically.
Yeah, and that's my concern. That's exactly my concern. These dollars don't go towards that, and that is the number one complaint. And to have a fee already established for cost recovery, and I'm not complaining, I'm just stating, to have a fee set that high and yet it doesn't cover those costs for the actual impacts to the neighbors, in which we heard a majority of the issues concerned in the public outreach, that was the concern. We are not really fulfilling number one, cost recovery, nor satisfying the impact. So I'm happy to ease into this with the code amendment, which is not on the table today. But I think we need to fully vet this out, and that's why, while I am committed to going forward, I am committed to the registration process, I'm committed to a number of things, I don't think this is fully baked well enough. And the fee is associated in the right places to cover those costs. That's where I think it still needs some work.
Oh,
and so I can't support it in its current state. And that's why a couple Tuesdays ago, I asked politely, with courteous, to pause on this until we can get it right. I'm committed to making it happen, but we need to fix these particular mechanisms. If we don't, then it's just a futile effort.
So I'm still confused. There is no fee set in this.
It's not about the fee, Jim. It's about the mechanism. I'm talking about the mechanisms. What Nate and I just exchanged was the mechanism. It's not the fee.
Well, you just said the fee doesn't cover the cost of enforcement or the sheriff's department. So, okay, so I don't need a response. I don't get where you're coming from, but I do I understand what you're saying. Let me just say that. That determination we made, frankly, I think the way to punish, first off, we should not punish, but if you fail a number of times, and you guys can set this in the future, you can take away their ability to provide STRs. And it takes an investment to create an STR. So if you're not going to follow the rules, you can take them away. You can take away their ability to do that. That's punishment enough. And maybe you just 6 months or a year, you can't have an STR, but there are other ways to enforce it. That's not in this. It could be in the fee portion. You could be $1,000 the first time, $2,000 the second, third time you don't have the ability to provide STR. But that's something else. So, any other questions or comments? Sonia.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I just want to encourage us to move along to the public hearing. I have to leave our meeting at noon today, and I really want to hear from any of our constituents that have comments or concerns.
Okay, well, we'll do that. So I'll open the public hearing and ask if anyone would like to testify on this matter. Christina, are you going to open it up?
Yes, I can moderate it for you. Thank you, Chair Bernard. I'll be coordinating public comment for the specific public hearing and later on for general comment. If any attendees would like to provide a comment specific to this public hearing, you can do so now by utilizing the raise hand feature on Zoom, or if you're by phone, you can hit *9 and that will raise your hand. Again, this is only for this specific related county business. It will open it up for everything in just a moment. going to give people a moment to raise their hand. I do have a couple emails that I need to read.
Okay.
And I'm not seeing any hands being raised. So I'll just go ahead and start the emails. And if we have hand raises, I'll let you know. This one is from Laura Peterson. She is in Rhododendron. And in her immediate neighborhood, there are 6 vacation rentals nearby. Happily, most guests are respectful and keep their outdoor noise down appropriately. However, of course, this is not always the case. Of these 6 rentals I only have the ability to reach out to the owners or agents for 2. One I can call directly, and they can call or text their guests from Lake Oswego home, or their Lake Oswego home. And one is managed by Vacasa, which provides a general phone number to call with issues. So far, I've had mostly simple and speedy resolutions to problems, but this leaves still 4 houses within earshot of the guests, if the guests are really loud after hours. I work at a local restaurant and happy participant in the tourist economy, but don't begrudge any visitors from having a fun time here. At the same time, I don't think my ability to sleep at night should suffer from inconsiderate vacationers. I fully support all of the measures I have read about so far and would like to know if there is still some consideration of outdoor posted owners' agents' contact info. I believe this could be a great tool in accountability. When the people who are directly profiting from these rentals are themselves disturbed when things are not going well, they will have much more of an incentive to make quiet hours crystal clear to their guests beforehand. I know there are guidelines laid out in contracts, etc., but unfortunately, in my experience, in plenty of situations, there are all too easily disregarded. Thank you. That was from Laura Peterson. I have one from Livia Castrucci. It says, I am the owner of an investment property in unincorporated Clackamas County to which the proposed zoning and development ordinance applies. Your email address was published. I won't read that. I was wondering how the commission came up with a proposed fee of $800 to $900 per property for a 2-year period. That is $33.33 or $37.50 additional monthly expenses. We have had the property for over 5 years now and rented it out, but have never had any issues with regards to parties, noise, garbage, overflow, etc. Or if we did, they were brought to our knowledge and we took care of them right away. It seems unfair that the general majority that complies with neighbors and unwritten rules of courtesy and politeness need to now pay for a few bad apples. I hope there will be also fines put in place for people who do not comply or cause repeat offenses, and that they should be hefty, since otherwise the owners will consider those fines as part of doing business. Thank you and best regards. And then this last one, it is very long. I did send it to you before the beginning of the meeting, from Betsy. And I can go ahead and read the whole thing. It's from Betsy LaBarge at Mount Hood Vacation Rentals.
You guys want her to read that? I've read it.
I've read it.
Okay, so we're good. Thank you.
Okay, so that one, I'll just mention that it's from Betsy LaBarge with the Mount Hood Vacation Rentals. And I still see no hands raised, so I believe that the public portion is done.
All right. With that, we'll close the public portion of this hearing and entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move we read the ordinance by title only.
I'll second that. Any further discussion?
On the motion or on the topic?
Well, I don't think we're ever that specific, so a topic.
Okay, if
This
it's a
is
topic.
Discussion on reading the ordinance by title only. The second round is where you can discuss the
Okay. All right, so ask the clerk to please poll us.
Commissioner Fisher?
Aye.
Commissioner Humbertston?
Aye.
Commissioner Savis?
Nay.
Commissioner Schrader? I'm sorry, your mic is off, Commissioner Schrader.
Nay.
Chair Bernard?
Aye. Motion carries 3-2. I'd ask the clerk to read the ordinance by title.
Ordinance number 09-2020, adding Clackamas County Code Chapter 8.10, short-term rentals, to the Clackamas County Code and amending Clackamas County Code Chapter 2.07, compliance hearings officer.
Okay. So I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move we adopt ordinance number 09-2020, adding Clackamas County Code Chapter 8.10, short-term rentals, to the Clackamas County Code and amending Clackamas County Code Chapter 2.07, compliance hearings officer.
Second. Any further discussion? So this would be the point where you might want to discuss it. Paul?
Yeah, I just want to say that I think that we need to get this right. There's some models out there like Lane County, for example, that have taken a different approach. We can modify what we have, but I think we need to think through this. And I think that the fee is not directed where it ought to go. And we've already just discussed that in the earlier round with myself and Mr. Boderman as far as the enforcement piece. That is the big deal. So we owe it to our citizens. We owe it to our neighborhoods. We owe it to the general fund. Because my concern is this is going to be far more, even if you collect the full fee. Frankly, even if you collect $2,000, it's not going to provide the mechanisms necessary. So it's not about the money per se, it's about the mechanisms. I cannot support it in its current state until we fix that on behalf, again, of the general fund for cost recovery, for the communities in the neighborhood. And frankly, well, I'll stop there. That's the end of my comments. I can't support it in its current setup. Thank you.
Would this be a time you could make amendments? Yes. So what would your recommendation be for an amendment to the code today?
That's a pretty lengthy one, and I already tried to. I don't think there's enough time to actually fix that. That's why I suggested a pause 2 Tuesdays ago.
Okay, Martha.
I do concur with Commissioner Savas on this. I think he's hit the nail on the head. I also want to move forward making these opportunities legal in the code. But I am very concerned about the high cost of enforcement and the clarity of where that money is going to go, and actually setting up an additional administrative structure for that. I don't think our general fund can afford it, and I'm very concerned about the cost recovery being really, quite frankly, unattainable. I really do not see, I have to be direct, a future commission really addressing this issue and cost. And then that would virtually make it unsustainable and really not giving us an ability to implement anything in a very efficient and straightforward way. Thank you.
All right, Sonia?
Yeah, I really appreciate this robust discussion and appreciate Commissioner Savas and Commissioner Schrader bringing up these points because they're very, very important. My support of this is based on we are a cost recovery county. We're not going to implement a program where we are not going to have cost recovery. The conversation about what all this will look like in regards to cost recovery is not going to happen until a later date. And it's going to be up to us to make sure, Paul, Martha, myself, and the new commission, to make sure that we are being responsible with the with our programs and our policies, because it needs to cover itself. I really agree with the last email that we received. And Christine, I don't know if you can tell me the name of the constituent that emailed. But I really feel strongly that the bad actors need to pay through fines for the, to go have that go towards enforcement. And those are conversations that we get to have at a future date. I think our staff has been amazing in working on this. It's excellent work, excellent work, trying to find the balance for what works in Clackamas County as far as what the regulations are, and to strike the balance of incorporated and unincorporated, which, and I mean, urban and non-urban and vacation areas. They've done an excellent job, and I want to see this continue, and that is the basis of my support. And we get to make sure that it's equitable and fair, and that it will be sustainable in the future. We get to decide that coming up, and I'm committed to that. So thank you, Paul, or Commissioner Savas. Thank you, Commissioner Schrader, for bringing up those important points.
Paul, your hand's still up?
No, I just want to remind Jim, I appreciate you offering to make some changes. And I just want to remind everyone, yourself included, that when we had the first hearing and the days following, I offered to say, let me work with staff and make some changes and edits because it's complicated. And no one was interested in that. So I want to just remind everyone that I made an effort to offer to draft something and some changes, and no one was interested in that. And therefore, I can't do what you just suggested we can do because we don't have the time to do that. I appreciate Commissioner Fisher's comments, but I would encourage Commissioner Fisher to think through and read through this and realize it's not about the money completely. It's not about fining people or whatnot. It's about the mechanisms.
Okay, Ken?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is one of the most robust public processes we've had on almost anything that we have done in the last 4 years. There's been an incredible amount of public input to this process from all sides, from people who didn't want anything done to people who would like to see short-term rentals completely eliminated. Staff has done an incredibly good job of going through all of that information and crafting something that addresses or begins to address a lot of the issues that we faced, from TRT collections to misbehaviors and substandard units and all of the rest of it. So I think this is a great start going forward. There is absolutely nothing to prevent the board going forward from making modifications and changes as we learn more about the best ways of doing it. And I'm sure, as Commissioner Chavez has pointed out, there's many different models out there that one can look at. So saying that any particular one is the perfect one, I seriously doubt that there is. I just think that we've spent an incredible amount of time on it. We've worked very hard to listen to people from the industry, as well as citizens who were impacted by it. And I think it's time to move it forward. Thank you.
Yeah, and I think that the solution is bigger fines. Fine them if they keep failing. Fine them. All right, with that, I'd like Christina to please. Do we need to poll? Yeah.
Yes, there's a motion on the floor.
Please poll us.
Okay. Commissioner Fisher?
Aye.
Commissioner Humbertson?
Aye.
Commissioner Savas?
Nay.
Commissioner Schrader?
I'm reading your lips. Nay.
My Commissioner Schrader.
Nay.
And Chair Bernard?
Aye. Motion carries 3-2. All right, with that, I'll announce that the board will now recess at the Board of County Commissioners and convene as the County Surface Water Management Agency for the next public hearing.
All right. Of course, thank you to our staff, Martha and Dan, for your work. Moving on, next public hearing is approval of resolution authorizing a financing for new capital projects for Surface Water Management Agency of Clackamas County. Nate Boderman, County Counsel, will present.
Thank you. We do have 4 more public hearings this morning for you, so please get comfortable, although I don't think that they will take all that long. All of these relate to a proposal by Water Environment Services to borrow money in connection with the issuance of bonds, the purpose of which will be to finance a number of projects which Chris Story, who I see here joining us, will cover here in just a moment. I'll start by saying that, fundamentally, this is no different than what staff has asked the board to approve in the past when preparing to borrow money in connection with the issuance of bonds. And as you are probably aware, the county recently completed a similar bond financing transaction, which closed last August, I believe, and was for the refinancing of certain obligations as well as the funding of certain new capital projects. Now, as part of this transaction, or that transaction that closed in August, the board authorized a similar action back in April of the year in order to provide the authorization to proceed with that transaction. So this is very typical of what you see with this type of transaction. Now, the primary difference this time around relates to the entity involved in the transaction, which is the reason that we have to hold 4 separate hearings and have 4 separate actions as opposed to the single hearing that you may be accustomed to having. So to clarify, WES will be the entity responsible for repaying the obligations. And as you know, WES is an intergovernmental partnership, is composed of Clackamas County Service District number 1, Tri-City Service District, and Surface Water Management Agency of Clackamas County. And according to state statute, each of these member entities must separately authorize WES to incur the obligations that are proposed as part of this transaction. So hopefully that provides some clarity around the need for the different public hearings. I just want you to keep in mind that you're going to be wearing several different hats this morning. Please try and keep that straight. Remember your fiduciary duty to each of those separate entities. And at this point, I will turn it over to Chris Story to briefly describe the need for the financing and to answer any specific questions that you may have on the projects that are being proposed. Chris?
Thank you, Nate. Great presentation. And just to summarize the high points of what we actually talked about yesterday at issues as well, this is a potential bond offering where we are basically testing the market because the interest rates were so remarkably low. We saw this summer, the county had a AAA rating that achieved a sub 1% interest rate. WES has separately its own identical AAA bond rating, which means that it should be able in theory to realize that same level of interest benefit. And we are interested in exploring that. The WES entity, now not the subcomponents, but the WES entity itself has a fairly substantial capital improvement project plan for the next 5 years. The staff report, which was included for each of the public hearings, lists out about 8 different projects that with various costs, substantially more than what is being requested to be borrowed. WES has sufficient reserves to fund any difference between the amount intended to be expended and the amount borrowed. And we are basically looking at this from the perspective of saving ratepayers money. We anticipate if we're able to achieve those very low interest rates that the county was able to achieve, that we'll be able to save between $6 and $8 million in interest expenses over the life of the bonds for our ratepayers. So this is not that we need the money immediately to build the projects, it's that this is the best time to borrow the money to lower the overall cost to ratepayers. And if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them regarding the projects or the process.
Any questions?
Yeah, I do. Chris, could you name off 1 or 2 of the projects that were these dollars would be funding?
So certainly the sort of top level ones, we have the Outfall project, which was just approved by voters in Oregon City. We're anticipating the total project to cost about $24 million over the next 3 years. We're anticipating spending just shy of $13 million on that project. We have some remainder expenditures on the Tri-City Solids Handling Project. The Clackamas Interceptor Project, one of our major collector projects, is anticipated to cost over $33 million, and that includes substantial I&I improvement work in our infrastructure, as well as expansion of capacity out towards the area formerly known as Damascus. We are undertaking a fairly significant pump station upgrade process. A lot of our pump stations were constructed in the 70s, last sort of refurbished in the 90s, so they are definitely due, and we are setting it up so all the pumps are from the same manufacturer to improve our maintenance expenses, overall operating expenses. We're also anticipating having to address that I&I issue, some improvements for peak wet weather infrastructure at the treatment plant itself. While the majority of our infrastructure investment will be focused in the collection system to remove it to the maximum extent practicable, we still anticipate having to expand the treatment plant to handle the continued peak wet weather challenges we are anticipating. The Kellogg plant is actually looking at a significant expansion. Right now, we have a solids handling process there that is liquid. There's no centrifuge there to dewater it, so we run about 8 to 10 trucks per day from the Kellogg treatment plant. Substantial investments there would allow us to install upgraded solids handling and a centrifuge to reduce that to 1 truck a day. I can go on.
Yeah, don't.
But there's a lot to do. There's a lot to do. I'll just say that.
Yeah, that's more than plenty. Thank you.
Okay, any further questions? With that, I'll open the public hearing and ask if anyone would like to testify on this matter.
Chair Bernard, I'll go ahead and handle the public comment for it, this specific hearing. If anybody would like to comment, you can do so now by utilizing the raise hand feature or hit *9. I'm going to give people a couple minutes to do that. Doesn't look like we have any hands, and I don't have any emails on this.
All right, thank you. And with that, I'll close the public hearing and entertain a motion. All right, I'll do it. I move we approve a resolution authorizing financing for new capital projects for the Surface Water Management Agency of Clackamas County. Is there a second?
Second.
Been moved and seconded that we approve a resolution authorizing financing for new capital projects for Surface Water Management Agency of Clackamas County. Any further discussion? I'd like to just say that I'm proud of Clackamas County's AAA rating and of Wes's AAA rating. That took place under our administration. And thank you very much for the hard work of keeping Clackamas County financially sound. And with that, I'd ask the Christina to please poll us.
Sure.
Aye.
Commissioner Humbertston?
Aye.
Commissioner Savis?
Aye.
Commissioner Schrader?
Aye.
And Chair Bernard?
Aye, motion carries unanimously. Next, I would like to announce that the board will adjourn as Clackamas Surface Water Agency and convene as the Service District #1 for the next public hearing.
Next is approval of a resolution authorizing a financing for new capital projects for Clackamas County Service District #1. Nate and Chris will present.
So I'll just clarify that this hearing is specifically related to the authorization from CCSD #1, really for the previously mentioned proposal. So everything mentioned previously applies here. So unless there's any questions specifically, or Chris has anything to add specifically related to CCSD #1, we can proceed with the public hearing.
Chris?
It's
Any
identical.
questions?
Well, I just have one question, just a clarification. Chris, when I earlier asked you for the projects, you mentioned I&I, and you mentioned it, I believe, under the context of Tri-Cities. Whose I&I was it that you had, what we're referencing, Tri-Cities or CCSD1?
Our overall I&I efforts, it's a regional effort. It applies to everybody.
Come on.
Martha.
So we have expansion of the treatment plant for peak wet weather challenges, expansion of the outfall to handle the flows that will be flowing through. But you also have collection system improvements, both for the West-owned portions of the system and for the collection systems owned by the various city partners that we work with. And so all of that will be included in our larger capital improvement efforts.
So are you saying that some of these dollars would actually improve the collection system within the cities?
They could be used in partnership with cities. Part of the dialogue at the West Advisory Committee has been to look at basically forging a regional IGA for how to approach the optimal solution for ratepayers and addressing I&I. And that could include West contributing dollars to support I&I reduction work. it nets the region of savings of north of $100 million if everyone works together to remove I&I from the collection system.
That's good to hear. Thank you.
Yeah, it is good to hear. It's about time.
Yep.
All right. With that, I will open the public hearing and ask if anyone would like to testify on this matter.
I don't have any emails on this matter, and I do not see any hands being raised.
All right. With that, we'll close the public hearing and entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move we approve the resolution authorizing financing for new capital projects, Clackamas County Service District number 1.
Second.
It's been moved and second that we approve a resolution authorizing financing for new capital projects, Clackamas Service, new capital projects, Clackamas County Service District number 1. Any further discussion? Please poll us, Christina.
Commissioner Fisher?
Aye.
Commissioner Humbertston?
Aye.
Commissioner Savas?
Aye.
Commissioner Schrader?
Aye.
And Chair Bernard.
Aye, motion carries unanimously. With that, I'll announce that the board will now adjourn as Clackamas County Service District number 1 and convene as Tri-City Service District for the next public hearing.
Next, approval of a resolution authorizing a financing for new capital projects for the Tri-City Service District. Nate and Chris, go ahead, please.
Thank you. And again, nothing to add except to remind you once again that you are sitting as the governing body of Tri-City Service District now.
All right, we'll open the public hearing and ask if anyone would like to testify on this matter.
I'll just give a quick reminder. If you want to testify, raise hand feature or *9. And I don't have any emails and I'm not seeing any hands raised.
All right, we'll close the public hearing and entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move we approve the resolution authorizing a financing for new capital projects for Tri-City Service District.
Second.
It's moved and second that we approve a resolution authorizing financing for new capital projects for Tri-Cities Service District. Any further discussion?
I just have a comment. Comment is that obviously we don't have any people speaking today on any of our hearings on any of these topics. And I just want to note that I know a lot of people are very, very busy day before Thanksgiving. One might say this is an opportune time to have public hearings. I, for one, would say that the day before the holiday is not the opportune time if you want public hearing and testimony. That's all I have. Thank you.
All right. See, we already made the motion. It's been seconded. So Christina, would you please poll us?
Of course. Commissioner Fisher?
Aye.
Commissioner Humbertston?
Aye.
Commissioner Savas?
Aye.
Commissioner Schrader? See her eye.
Aye.
Perfect. And Chair Bernard.
Aye, motion carries unanimously. I'd say this is an opportune time to take advantage of extremely low interest rates.
Absolutely.
I'll announce that the board will now adjourn as Tri-City Service District and convene as the Water Environmental Services for the next public hearing.
Next, approval of a resolution authorizing a financing for new capital projects for water environment services. Nate and Chris, please go ahead.
Thank you for your final hearing this morning. Again, just a reminder, you are now sitting in your capacity as the governing body of Water Environment Services, and that's all I have.
I actually would make 2 notes here. The first is, to be clear, this idea or concept was floated with the West Advisory Committee, and they provided their input and dialogue and thought it was a good idea to proceed, which is why we're having the conversation with you today. And the second is to emphasize that this is the NA that will be issuing the debt, Water Environment Services, and that the debt is primarily, you will see from the list of projects, associated with sewer. So we don't have any surface water projects on the list right now, and that they are broken out by the type of service you receive. So we assign them to either the wholesale rate or the retail rate. So customers will only pay for the projects that are related to the service that they receive.
Thank you. Any additional comment, Paul?
Yep, I have a comment. So Chris, I have a question, and this is, a little bit worrisome to some degree, or something that's on the top of my mind, including yesterday, and I'll speak to that later on a different topic. But should we not? West is not a district, but is comprised or manages 3 districts. Is that correct?
West is a separate legal entity comprised of 3 districts.
Okay. So when we hold these hearings, is this board convening as individually as CCSD1, Tri-Cities, and the Surface Water Agency?
That's why we've had 4 different public hearings, yes.
Right, I understand that, but typically I think before, at least in this setting, it's hard to know under Zoom, but when we were up at the dais, there'd be a little thing at the bottom to say you are convened as the Tri-City Board of Directors and so forth. So I just didn't hear that enunciated at the beginning of the meeting, that we are convened as that. I understand the hearing states that and is printed, but it has not been enunciated unless I missed it.
I've read every single one of them, Paul.
I understand that. I just understand that. Just want to say that's
okay. Anything additional? All right, we'll open the public hearing. Ask if anyone would like to testify on this matter.
Mr. Chairman, I put my hand up.
Oh, sorry, Ken.
I just wanted to commend staff on 2 things. You already did on one, and that is they're paying attention to the interest rate situation. This is some of the least expensive money we will probably ever borrow in any capacity. And secondly, that you're addressing the I&I issues, particularly in partnership with the cities, I think is commendable, and really look forward. Even though I'm not on the sewer system myself, I understand the costs that are affiliated with that, and this will make our systems a lot more efficient. So thank you very much for your due diligence on this.
All right, let's open the public hearing and ask if anyone would like to testify on this matter.
I'll just give a reminder, you can use the raise hand feature or *9 on your phone. I do not have any emails on this, and I'm not seeing any hands raised.
All right, we'll close the public hearing and entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move we approve the resolution authorizing financing for new capital projects for water environmental services.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and second that we approve a resolution authorizing financing for new capital projects for water environmental services. Any further discussion? With that, Christina, please poll us.
Commissioner Fisher?
Aye.
Commissioner Humbertson?
Aye.
Commissioner Savis?
Aye.
Commissioner Schrader?
Aye.
And Chair Bernard?
Aye, motion carries unanimously. I'd like to announce that the board will now adjourn as Water Environmental Services and reconvene as the Board of County Commissioners for the remainder of the meeting. And Terry, what's up next?
Thank you, Chris, for your help. And we'll move on now to a public discussion item supporting the Construction to Career Pathways Program, or C2P2. We have Tracy Moreland from County Administration to present. Of course, you just discussed this at a policy session, but this is formalizing your decision. So Tracy, please go ahead.
Thank you, Administrator Schmidt. Good morning, Commissioners. Tracy Moreland from County Administration. I think I can be really brief for you. Last week, during our policy session, you did vote to adopt the Construction Career Pathways Project Framework. And I mentioned at that time that today there would be an accompanying board resolution for you to formalize that support, which has been in your packet, and to vote on. Board resolutions that are brought to business meetings, and it has been reviewed by County Council. So I can try to answer any further questions you have, Chair Bernard. If not sure if there's anyone in the public here today to speak on this.
Looks like Martha would like to say something.
Tracy, I just want to thank you for all your hard work on this. You really did such a diligent, wonderful job. And I think this is something that's going to really help our apprenticeship programs, add more diversity to the workforce, and it's because of your hard work. So thank you for everything you've done to move this forward.
Thank you.
And Tracy, I thought your presentation the other day was outstanding. I was one of your best. So Thank you. And Martha, thank you for the work you've done. And I think the partnerships that have developed from this are really outstanding and great opportunity for people to become part of the workforce and get the training they need. Paul.
Yeah, I just want to say kudos to both Commissioner Schrader and Tracy for their hard work and the effort and that of the workforce partnership group as well. So thank you all. Well, job well done.
Oh, Ken.
Yes, I'd like to make a personal thank you to Paul Philpott of the Northwest Carpenters, who really helped bring this up to the forefront of our agenda. And I do believe that this is going to help not only women and minorities and others enter this career field, but it's going to fill a need that we are going to see going forward. Many thousands of jobs in these fields are going to be necessary as the region grows. And so having a workforce prepared for it is good forward thinking. Thank you.
Paul and Sonia.
Yeah, I just forgot one thing I was to mention, and that is, and Martha, I'm not sure if you were, I know you had a couple other matters, so you weren't in full attendance yesterday, but I want to make sure you heard what I had shared with Nancy yesterday, and that was, well, Tuesday. Oh, yeah, that was yesterday. Just the concern that with the opportunities with the state subcontracting out some of the tree removal and also some of the slide or moving earth and so forth, it might be a great opportunity for training opportunities for those in the apprentice line of heavy equipment. So I just didn't know if we had that opportunity as well, could somehow mesh with this effort. But I just did want to point that out, that there's a lot of work out there to be done, and hopefully that'll be done locally. Hopefully the trees that are harvested will stay in the county for some local mills as best as possible, and that jobs will be provided to local residents as well.
Sonia and then Ken.
Yeah, I just want to be on record saying amen to my colleagues' comments in appreciation for all of the work. This is great.
Ken.
Yes, just a suggestion, and that is to reach out to Operating Engineers 701. They do the heavy equipment training right here in Clackamas County off of Marksburg Road or Maxburg Road. And they're always very willing to help and work out training opportunities for people.
And last night I was on the phone about BIPOC hiring. It's something that the county ought to look at. Making sure that people of color have an opportunity to bid on these projects. The challenge with this one that Paul was mentioning is timing. The state demands that it needs to be done in a certain time frame. So that's very challenging, but do what you can. All right, with that, I'll open the public hearing and ask if anyone would like to testify on this matter.
I will go ahead and reiterate that if you would like to have public comment, go ahead and raise your hand or *9. Looks like Tiffany Thompson has her hand raised. I'll go ahead and bring her in. Tiffany, if you would like to unmute yourself, you have 3 minutes.
Hi, thank you so much. My name is Tiffany Thompson. I work at Oregon Metro as the Construction Career Pathways Project Manager. And I also formerly worked for Oregon Tradeswomen. And one of my dearest friends actually is an operating engineer with Local 701. So I was really glad to hear that shout out. Yes. And I just wanted to thank all of you so much for the hard work, commissioners, that you also put into understanding this issue and bringing it to Clackamas County. And I just couldn't pass up the opportunity to also say thank you to Tracy. The hard work that you all are commending her on is not something that's just seen within Clackamas County, but it has been an absolute honor to work with Tracy during this process. She really dove into understanding a complex industry and wanted to make sure that she got it right. So really my testimony is just a shout out to Tracy for everything she did, and to all of the Clackamas staff for being so supportive and so interested in making this happen. So thank you all so much.
Give her a hand. Good job, Tracy.
Thank you. Thank you.
Don't see any other hands. No emails.
No emails and no other hands.
All right, with that, we'll close the public hearing and entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move we support the Construction Career Pathways Program.
Second.
Been moved and seconded that we support the Construction Career Pathway Program.
Chair, excuse me, the motion should be you approve the resolution. You've already supported the program. This is to approve the resolution today.
Yeah, our script doesn't say that. That's why I read what I read, but I do move to support the resolution.
Second.
And it's been moved and seconded to support the resolution to support the Construction Career Pathways Program. All right, any further discussion? Please, Christina, please poll us.
And sorry about that motion. It was my fault. Commissioner Fisher?
Aye.
Commissioner Humbertston?
Aye, and I'm depending on Martha to make sure that our Workforce Connection takes care of the program.
It will.
All right.
Commissioner Savas?
Aye, and I want to thank Commissioner Humberston this morning because he has the script and has been making the motions. I've been struggling to find the script. I finally found it, and I got to apologize to Chris Story and staff. It was enunciated and written. I just didn't catch it because I didn't have the script this morning, so I apologize. If someone could pass it on to Mr. Story and others, I'd appreciate it. But that was my lack of being able to access the script. Thank you.
Chair Schrader?
Aye.
And Chair Bernard?
Aye, motion carries unanimously. Congratulations. And again, thank you, Tracy. Great job.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And just really quick, I just want to thank you all again on behalf of the many, many staff and departments and county partners that worked on this. Appreciate your support on it.
Thank you. All right, with that, it is time to do what, Gary?
Next is the consent agenda.
I'll ask the clerk to read the consent agenda, please.
Okay, today's consent agenda for Health, Housing, and Human Services. Approval of a revenue agreement with Care Oregon for COVID direct member support and telehealth infrastructure funding. Approval of a subrecipient professional services agreement with Cascade AIDS Project for human immune deficiency virus, HIV, testing and counseling services. Approval to accept federal grant award for a comprehensive opioid stimulant and substance abuse site-based program grant. Amendment number 8 to agreement number 7462, a revenue agreement with Care Oregon for pharmacist services to members enrolled with Oregon Health Plan. For the Department of Transportation and Development, approval of a contract amendment number 2 with the National Safety Council for purposes of Safe Systems Approach to Rural Road 20. Approval of an intergovernmental agreement with the Oregon Department of Transportation for right-of-way services for the South End Road at Mile 3.8 project. Approval of a contract with Diexis LLC for traffic safety program. Under Business and Community Services, a board order approving property disposition procedures amendment and property control transfer of Corner Park properties from Business and Community Services to Clackamas County Department of Transportation and Development. Under Technology Services, approval of a service level agreement with Cascade Utilities Incorporated for a connection to Government Camp. Approval of a service level agreement with OHSU for a dark fiber connection. Under the Juvenile Department, approval of our amendment number 9, intergovernmental agreement with Multnomah County Assessment and Evaluation for assessment and evaluation beds for youth. Under County Administration, approval of a contract with Hawkins, Delafield, and Wood LLP to serve as a P3 legal advisor. And finally, under North Clackamas Parks and Recreation District, approval of an intergovernmental agreement between City of Milwaukee and North Clackamas Parks and Recreation District for funding construction of Phase 3 of Milwaukee Bay Park. And that is your consent agenda.
All right, do any commissioners wish to remove an item from the consent agenda? I see 2 hands, Paul and Ken. Paul?
Yeah, Chair Bernard, I want to remove item 6, the North Clackamas Parks and Recreation District. I'm happy to speak to that. I tried to bring attention to this yesterday and the presentation that was made on libraries. But whenever it's appropriate to talk about this item, I would like to.
Hey, I would need a second for that, right? Or would I, Gary?
No, any single commissioner can ask to pull an item and you would pull it.
All right. All right, with that, so that item's been pulled, so we'll vote on the rest of them and then talk about poll.
So you could either, staff is present, you can talk about this item after you formalize the rest of the consent agenda, or we could pull it entirely, bring it up at issues next Tuesday, so you have more time to talk about it. You are running out of time and you have more on your agenda.
All right, so that item is pulled. So what was the item number, Paul?
Is item 6, Roman numeral 6, 1.
Okay, so it's been.
Yeah. Point of order?
Yes.
I think I was next, Mr. Chairman, and then I'll be happy to make a motion.
Yes.
I just wanted to commend Technology Services for their work and expansion of our CBX system, and remind everybody that that's a system that is self-supporting and has little or no support from general fund services at all. So I just want to commend them. As you probably guessed, they're kind of near and dear to my heart. So I would move to approve the consent agenda as amended.
Second.
Moved and second to approve the consent agenda as amended. Any further discussion? Christina, please poll us.
Commissioner Fisher?
Aye.
Commissioner Humbertson?
Aye.
Commissioner Savas?
Aye.
Commissioner Schrader?
Aye.
And Chair Bernard?
Aye, motion carries unanimously. I mean, yes, unanimously with amendments. Next item is public.
Chair?
Yes.
Chair, can I just briefly speak? I mean, I know we pulled it for discussion for Tuesday, but I just want to just briefly speak to it. And so you all understand, and there's no confusion between now and Tuesday. And that is that what I was trying to raise yesterday was the district, which was not present. We didn't meet as the North Clackamas Parks Recreation District when we approved the process for the Concord property. And millions of dollars in a budget was laid out in there. Millions of dollars were appropriated, in which, theoretically I support. I also support the Milwaukee the project as well. But what we have promised, and because of questions raised on both of these issues, is that there would be a public process for that, and specifically discussion about SDCs and a number of things that the District Advisory Board would then meet. So when we met earlier this year, I brought that to staff's attention, and NCPRD board needs to actually discuss both these matters because it's a significant amount of money. So that's basically the genesis of that. And unfortunately, we've had some changes at NCPRD, and that was not carried forward. So we just need to dot the I's and cross the T's. So I look forward to that discussion on Tuesday.
And then I'd like to put that on the agenda again next Thursday.
Okay. Well, if we can fulfill all those processes and technicalities by then, I'm fine. But we still need to go through the couple of those things and amendments or agreements that were discussed at the DAB level and at the board level.
Okay. All right, we'll move on to the public communications portion of this meeting. Ask if anyone would like to testify.
Thank you, Chair Bernard. Thank you. Now is the time for general comment relating to any county business. If you have a comment related to county business, you can use the raise hand feature on Zoom. And if you're calling in by phone, you can go ahead and hit *9. I will give people a few seconds to do that. I do already see a hand up, and I don't have any emails. So we'll allow Christine Kennedy. Go ahead and unmute yourself, and you have 3 minutes.
Thanks very much. I really appreciate the opportunity to speak today. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. So I wrote a letter, but I'm not going to read the whole thing because you've already heard a lot of what I've said in terms of the importance of dealing with the pandemic. And my letter really is in regards to the election of Tootie Smith as the new chair for the board. And as a citizen of Clackamas County, I just wanted to voice my concern, as I'm probably sure you've heard from other people. I'm a retired nurse, and my last hospital that I worked at was a large university hospital in the Southeast. I was the administrator for all of the medicine units, including the medical intensive care unit. I was there for the 2009 H1N1 epidemic. It's one thing to sit in an office and read a chart, talk about cases. It's another thing when you walk over to the intensive care unit in the waiting room. It's full, and a mother dissolves in your arms because her 30-year-old daughter has been admitted. She's pregnant, she has the virus, and she's on a ventilator, and she's going to have to deliver the baby in the medical intensive care unit. So I'm speaking from the perspective of somebody who's gone through that. Other people are speaking eloquently about the stress on the hospitals. I'm really speaking as someone who has that perspective, but also a citizen. And I'm very committed to the community. I'm an active grandma. I'm here to support my adult children, my grandchildren, and the community. I have my own plan that's based on science. Unfortunately, Tootie's philosophy is not based on science, even though she says it is. And recently she's doubled down with an argument about the fact that because our deaths are low in Oregon, that we should open up. That is the exact opposite thing that we should be doing. So I think Governor Brown, OHA, Clackamas County, you guys have all been doing a great job. And as we head into the winter, I know it's been a terrible time in a year. The impact on the economic situation is terrible. The wildfires and the smoke amplified an already bad situation for our state and our county, our people. And it's made a bad situation even worse now that we have the pandemic and confusion coming from somebody who is a potential leader for our county. As I understand, she's moving into the chair position. She was elected for that last May. I guess I was pretty much distracted and didn't realize that she was on the ballot. My fault. But now I think, because as I understand, a key responsibility for the board of directors in 2021 is managing the pandemic. What I hear today from you guys, I'm totally impressed with. However, what I'm concerned about is when Ms. Smith comes on as the chair, what's going to happen to the business of the county? What kind of structure is there for dealing with behavior? Because as an administrator, I had to deal with behavior, talk about behavior, not get personal. So I do have some requests and questions that I've included in my letter. I'll just hit some high spots. I'm really interested in what her annual salary is. Who's her one up? Does anybody give her feedback about her performance? What kind of standards is she held to? Is her employment record during the last term that she was in with Clackamas County, is that public record? I've read about at least one situation where she changed a vote after a meeting, which I think is juvenile, let's put it that way. She, in her interviews, she's been referring people to on her website, her plan for the pandemic and COVID. I've read it, it's out of date. It's completely I would have to say non-science based. The only reference she had in there was a paper from the Nature magazine.
I'm sorry to interrupt, Ms. Kennedy. We are actually at 3 minutes.
Okay, well, thank you very much. And I hope you'll read my memo. And I just want you to know how seriously concerned I am about how we're going to move ahead with operating our county with somebody who is clearly divisive. Anyway, best of luck and thank you for all the stuff you're doing. You guys are doing a great job. Thank you.
Christine, I want to mention that I've been the chair for 4 years and my role is no more powerful than any of the other 4. My role is to set the agenda. We have a great county administrator whose role is to manage the day-to-day business and employees. It's our role to manage the policies and procedures, but there is no extra power in being the chair beyond setting the agenda. So be assured that the people who remain behind will protect you and the community as much as humanly possible because they're dedicated public servants who care about your life and your safety. So thank you for your comments. Anyone else?
Don't see anybody else, and I do not have any emails for you.
All right, thank you. And we'll go on to our outstanding county administrator updates. And I know Sonia needs to leave in 8 minutes.
Yep, I'll start. So commissioners, at your request from yesterday, you asked to put a statement for you to review and potentially approve on behalf of the commission. It was printed on the agenda and I'll read it right now. As elected leaders, we want to assure everyone in our community that Clackamas County remains committed to advancing the values and principles of equity and inclusion. These values will continue to inform our policies and our commitment to our citizens, particularly the Black, Indigenous, and people of color or BIPOC community. We are a diverse county and our diversity makes our community stronger. Stronger communities make a stronger Clackamas County.
Thank you. With that, I'd entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved that we support this statement. Any further discussion?
Yeah, I just
Christine?
want to give a specific wonderful shout out to Commissioner Schrader, who spurning from our discussions drafted the statement. I think it's beautiful, Commissioner Schrader, and I just so appreciate you. And
Martha?
I appreciate all of my commissioners.
Martha, your hand is up. You're on mute. Now your picture's gone.
Technology, wonderful.
Yes, Commissioner Fisher, I want to thank you for your kind words with that. I'm just going to make one tiny suggestion. If we're going to discuss it under issues like we did previously, I do need to know ahead of time. I hadn't expected that, but I know in the future that just make sure as a professional courtesy that I'm more aware, because these are things that I feel very deeply about. And hopefully when I get a chance to talk, I'll talk a little bit about community, but I do want to thank you for your kind words as we move forward with this. It's been hard.
All right, Christina, please poll us.
Chair Bernard,
Paul's guy's hand up now.
Yeah, I just want to kind of in a similar way echo Commissioner Schrader's point, is that I appreciate my discussion with Commissioner Fisher and trying to put something together for this week. And I put a lot of thought in it over the weekend, spent a lot of my time on it, thinking about it. And so I just didn't realize that the direction that it went, and hope to be more engaged in that. But I think if we're going to work together, well in the future, I think it's imperative that we stay in touch with one another and work hard with one another, and not get kind of surprised, so to speak. So thank you.
All right, Christina, please poll us.
Commissioner Fisher?
Aye.
Commissioner Humbertston?
Aye.
Commissioner Savis?
Aye.
Commissioner Schrader?
Aye.
And Chair Bernard?
Aye, motion carries unanimously. All right, we're on now to what, Gary?
So I still have more for administrator update, but if Commissioner Fisher would like to do her update before she has to go, I would defer to her for that.
Oh, thank you, Administrator Schmidt. I just want to say how grateful I am to all of my colleagues, to Clackamas County, all of our employees, our community. There is so much to be thankful for. And with that, I just want to wish everyone the happiest and safest Thanksgiving we can have. Thank you.
Thank you. Gary?
If I may, so I just have one update, commissioners. All residents of Clackamas County should have received this, My ClackCo. It's Clackamas County's new magazine that is sent to all households twice a year, a semi-annual publication. And already in the week or so that it's been mailed, we received a nice compliment from a manager of an apartment complex in Milwaukee who wrote about the article in the magazine on Water Environment Services, or WES, and the ad that talks about the danger of flushing wipes down your toilet. And this manager wrote to us, your article about flushable wipes would be perfect for sharing with our residents. Our apartment complex is older and doesn't have updated pipes. So we have an ongoing challenge with people flushing things they shouldn't be flushing. The apartment manager asked and then received from our staff flyers about flushable wipes that the apartment manager gave out to all the tenants in his complex. And the management company is distributing to other apartment complexes throughout Clackamas County and the region. So thank you to our West staff, to Public and Government Affairs, who does the magazine, and all our staff who work very hard on this great new way to communicate with the public. That's my update. Thank you, Commissioners.
Thank you, Gary. And Martha, you're up.
All right. So I just want to talk a little bit. Thank you for my words. One of the reasons I wrote that is because that it's very important that with what we've been dealing with as a county, with our constituents and the individuals that we're going to need to work with in the future, to not focus on being divisive. It's very important because of the pandemic, because of trying to make sure that our social service infrastructure remains intact for people who are homeless, for people that have been wounded by the wildfires, that we really look at the notion of community. And I feel very strongly about that with those words because I grew up in a community and I learned about community from my own family, my grandmother, my parents, who are both nurses and first responders. So when I focus on things, I don't focus on the negative. You know, I'm too old for that. I try to focus on what can be and what we can do to work together, because I just don't have the energy to give to anything negative anymore with my time and at this stage of my life. So I looked up, I think, what is a beautiful, I think of a quote of what community is, and it's from a favorite writer of mine, Henri Nouwen, who was a Jesuit scholar who is very well known for his writings and his deep thoughts. And this is what he says about community. Community is, first of all, a quality of heart. It grows from the spiritual knowledge that we are alive, not for ourselves, but for one another. Community is the fruit of our capacity to make the interests of others more important than our own. The question, therefore, is not how can we make community, but how can we develop and nurture giving hearts. I will always come the perspective that from anyone I work with now and in the future, that they are going to be coming from the perspective of a giving heart. We may disagree, and it's unfortunate sometimes that from both sides of our viewpoints that things can become inflammatory in a way that is not helpful to build community. And I do mean that from both sides. Okay, we should not really spend our time calling one another out on our failings and our mistakes and using words that we should have used differently. We should be working with one another to communicate and fix that so it does not become a barrier, in my mind, to what we really need to be doing as a commission. So my statement today is I'd like to assure one another and all of us that we will move together with open hearts and community. There is no time or energy for conflict. We have too many other things to deal with. There is a significant need to forgive one another. So together we can make our county a better county and move forward in a united way. That's going to be very difficult. And as I said before, because the work of community, because of our diversity of opinions, the diversity of our demographics, of the people who live there, makes it challenging. But I am here to tell you on this Thanksgiving Day, or before Thanksgiving, that I do truly believe that we are going to be up to that challenge. I think we did it now, and I think that we will carry it into the future. So happy Thanksgiving, colleagues. Happy Thanksgiving, Administrator Schmidt. Thank you to all the staff that work so hard to make this county a true community. Okay, that's my soapbox for the day. Thank you all.
And I think your dog is also wishing us happy Thanksgiving.
Oh, yeah, that's why I'm always on you.
Thank you, and Paul.
Yeah, well done, Commissioner Schrader. It was a very difficult conversation at that point in time yesterday morning, you know, no matter, you know, we've done a lot of work together, and we have found ourselves in a number of situations sometimes when, you know, someone's being called out, and it's unfortunate, it's embarrassing, you know, even though it may not be ourselves, it's still painful and embarrassing. And I've never really believed that people should be admonished in public, and we have to be understanding, and if people are misinformed, we'll help them get the information, or if they're misunderstanding. It was painful. Commissioner Bernard, or Chair Bernard, one thing I didn't say yesterday that I wanted to say when we were discussing a particular topic is that, you know, your temperament is appreciated, and in that tough situation a couple of years ago, you did apologize, and I appreciate that. And so that you know, it's just part of growing. We're not perfect human beings, and we all just grow, and we have to realize that we're all trying to do the right thing, and we're all trying to do good things, but sometimes we get our approaches are maybe you know, ought to be reconsidered. I've always tried to be diplomatic as best I can. I was raised, like I mentioned yesterday, to if you have a disagreement with someone, you do it in private. You don't do it in public. So Commissioner Schrader, again, I think you did a good job of touching on that, and I want to thank you. What I wanted to talk about today briefly is kind of similar to what I shared with the Oregon City Business Alliance luncheon we had yesterday, or our opportunity. And even the speaker today who spoke, Christine, about the hospitals, and I kind of mentioned before, I grew up working in a hospital, and then later in life, a little bit later in life as a teenager, I also worked in another hospital. So, for those of you who have been in the emergency room on a busy night or a busy day, I've been there. I've been there as a patient, actually. And it's kind of stressful when you see other people around, and they can only take in so many people in the emergency room, and you see people either that are bleeding or suffering or crying in pain, and you know that you got to wait your turn. And so from what I saw as a young child and from what I saw as a teenager and what I've seen myself in an emergency room, it can be a life-changing experience, and it certainly changed mine. So I want to just share with everyone on this Thanksgiving Eve and looking forward as we battle the enemy, and the enemy is COVID. We need to work together as a community. And, you know, we're at war with this enemy, COVID. And like any war, we all have to pull together. And if we just remember back to some significant times in history where we were at war, we all pulled together. A lot of people were sent on the front lines. A lot of people who could not be on the front lines were sent in the factories to make parts for our war machine or whatever it took. Everyone sacrificed. And you could say, and you could argue that your rights were maybe in question, but because we're all patriots, because we love our country, we put that aside for the greater good. So I think in this particular circumstance and concern about the holiday and concern about this getting out of control, nationwide, worldwide, that this COVID thing can get out of control in this kind of weather, especially, that we all take the precautions and read as much as you can. But I just implore people to pull together and try to do what's good for our country as we fight the enemy of COVID. So with that, I wish all of you a safe and a happy Thanksgiving. Thank you.
Thank you. Ken?
Nothing to report today, Mr. Chairman. Thank you. I do wish everybody happy Thanksgiving.
All right, thank you. Remember that at 1:30, the governor is going to introduce her new metrics and things that all of us should take under consideration. And actually, it's very important that we follow those scientifically proven methods of saving lives in this battle, as Paul says, against the COVID virus. It's up to you. You can have a great Thanksgiving safely or plan a funeral for Christmas. You don't want to do that. So please wear your mask, stay safe, and it's tough to say, but have the best Thanksgiving you can have. We're adjourned. Thank you.